Hey everyone, welcome to Fiction Geeks. I'm Bonnie Johnston. I'm here with Beth Barany. We're both writing coaches and fiction authors, and we're here to geek out about fiction with you. We love talking about it. Beth is an organic writer. She's what they call a pantser. I'm a more structured writer. I'm what they call a plotter. And we have so many good conversations with each other about these different approaches and how each of us uses fiction writing techniques. I've learned so much just from talking with Beth about how differently she does it. And she's learned some things from me, and we thought it would be really fantastic if we could kind of cross-pollinate these two approaches for you and help you kind of get a taste of looking at these same techniques from two very different approaches to writing. So Beth, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. This is really a lot of fun.
I love talking with you, and I would love to know, if you don't mind, could we start with, would you tell us a little bit about your approach to writing fiction when it comes to characterization? Because the reason we started this series is you had a student who asked, how do you create such rich characters? So we'd love to know how you do that.
Great. Well, I have to say that it doesn't happen overnight. All of my stories take a while to mature. I believe that part of my process is unconscious and is happening in the background while I'm not even paying attention to it. So that might be that whole organic style. I don't know. But by the time I'm ready to write a story, I actually do start with planning and have for about, 5 or 6 years now, maybe more, where I make a lot of notes about my character. And I'm pretty systematic about it. Ironically, for being a pantser. What I am not so worried about is I'm not really tracking how all my notes fit specifically into the writing. I trust that all of the notes, and I go through a lot of the standard things. I go through goal, motivation, conflict, and then I added in strengths. And I go into identity and belief, like who is my character? Who do they think they are? Who do they want to be? And I go into secrets and I go into relationships. I love to think about things like, what are the essential items this person always carries? So I find them so emblematic. Is it a key? Is it a stone? Is it, one of my male characters in my romances, he has one of those multi-tools. And not only does he have one on his keychain, but he has one in his car. And he also has one by the front door of his apartment. Like, right? That one thing says so much about that one character. Or my, Henrietta the Dragon Slayer, she's got her weapons, but she doesn't just have a sword, she has her knives. And then because she was a blacksmith and a swordsmith, she has the tools to take care of her knives. That's very important, right? And she always, I would say she doesn't carry cooking supplies, but there's another character in the story who loves food, and he always has the pan and all the food and all the spices. And of course, that's really fun to talk about for him. And so every character in my stories, I do spend time thinking about these essential elements. What are they always carrying with them? Because I notice I'm a very kinesthetic person, and I used to carry around a rock. And so that's one thing. So I knew about that. And I read the book, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, which I highly recommend to everyone, where he just lists out what each of these Vietnam soldiers has in their standard issue army pack. Everybody has the same standard issue army pack with all the standard issue supplies, and then they personalize it. And he just lists it, and you don't have to explain who each person is. You just need to see what it is they're carrying. So it's one of my very favorite things to think about, and literally do hours of research because it's fun.
Oh, that's a wonderful technique.
Yeah. And it kind of extends into like favorite clothing, favorite shoes. And then of course you can also extend it into what does their physical environment look like? Because if you look at your physical environment, my physical environment, there's certain things that have been here for a very long time. And there's a reason why they stay in my apartment and aren't thrown out or given away. So that too is a wonderful detail or a little tiny motif that I like to use in my fiction that says something about my character without explaining anything. So those are a few of the things. I know there's some other very essential things. I think the other thing is the turning point story. I actually spend time in my brainstorming process, but also when I'm editing, I often write more in this particular area. Like, what is the story, the event, the thing that happened to the character that really shape who they are on day one of the story? And sometimes I have to, like I said, do this in editing, because I can only take things so far. And because I am a pantser in many regards, all that pre-work I do, all the planning work, it comes into the story, or maybe the story changes a little and my character even changes as I write her and as I start to edit her. Then I realize, oh, wait a minute, actually, I didn't go deep enough in the first pass of my planning. I now need to, and I literally sit down and write another piece of backstory for that important moment in her past. And I write it as a scene. I just go really deep into it so that I get the lived experience, and so that it just becomes enters into the psyche of my character. So
I love that.
She's walking around, in the back of her mind, she's remembering, and I'm thinking of a character I'm working on right now, she's got this heavy tragedy that pushes her and kind of dogs her and has shaped her into being the person she is today. And it's also painful. So it's a weird relationship, right? It's dear and it shaped her, but it's also painful. So I get to imbue my character with these stories that then help me make decisions in editing. Because maybe part of being a pantser is a lot of the work I do, really, I hone the story in editing. The first draft is fun. It's like exploratory, like what's inside? Who are these characters? And let's see how much of all that planning work actually ends up on the page. And then when I see what ends up on the page, I make new decisions. I sometimes pivot a little bit about who these characters are. So I guess that's what, makes me a pantser.
As I'm listening to this, I think it's really interesting. It seems like in terms of your character preparation, you have gone out of your way to do some things that help to externalize abstract traits. Things like giving your character a prized possession that they always carry with them. That's like a way of externalizing who they are. And also that technique of writing their backstory as a scene, as if it was going to be in the story, even though you're probably not going to show it. That's a way of making that experience very vivid for yourself. I'm not surprised that your characters are so rich and vivid on the page. You're doing these things before you write to really make them more tangible for yourself.
Having created the tangible connections and writing these backstories really helped me make decisions in editing about verbs, about nouns, about what she notices when she walks into a room. And I have to really deeply understand where my character is coming from and what shaped her to be the person she is today. So, for example, my investigator character, what she notices when she walks into a room is going to be different than if my cupcake baker in one of my romances, what she notices when she walks into a room. And I actually think about this in the planning stage as well, because that helps me shape what is it I'm going to show, because the world is from her perspective. I don't write omniscient. I write from deep point of view of a primary character, sometimes more than one primary character throughout the course of a story. But currently I'm just working on one character who's got the point of view for all 4 books that I'm working on. So I very much care about what shapes her perceptions, what she is trained to notice, and what is important to her.
That's a really wonderful technique. Could we switch a little bit and talk about teaching, how you teach characterization? Because as we both know, it's what you do for yourself is not always what will help your students, and you have to kind of adapt, right? I mean, you probably do things with this that you adapt so that other people can kind of take them and run with them in their process. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So I teach in characters in 2 of my classes quite a lot. So in my Plan Your Novel class, I have a whole section on developing your characters. And I do walk people through these planning elements like goal, motivation, and conflict. And I believe I have a list of 14 elements. And I really have put together both who one thinks one is, one's perspective on themselves, their attitude, but also their relationships, their core story, or their core backstory, the things they carried, secrets, other things like that. And then I do go more in depth in my Crafting Compelling Characters class to really walk people through how, for example, do you determine someone's identity, who they are, what is that I am statement, and what they truly believe about themselves in the world, and what might that be by the end of the story, and how do you figure that out. And the exercises I offer are actually developed out of my work as an NLP certified master NLP trainer, I guess, or I have a practitioner training in that, which I bring into the work as a fiction coach, as a writing coach. And I walk people through the exercises so that they can get a sense of, well, what is my identity and how do I verbalize that? How do I say I am something, I am a writer, or I am happy, or I am good in the world, whatever it might be for the author. I walk them through that. And then I have an exercise where I walk them through that for their character. So that's a discovery exercise on how do you figure out what your character truly believes and who they really are and what their attitude is and how they see the world.
I love your experiential approach to learning.
Yes, I would say all of my work is experiential because that is how I learned. So I am translating my tool of learning into helping the writer. And I would say that I am very open about helping people who maybe were confused about how to go about something and needed a guideline and needed a map, but didn't want to be told precisely what to do. So it's more like a suggestion. It's more like, here is a roadmap, try it, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, try something else. So it's really offered in that spirit.
That's really wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your thoughts on characterization.
My pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed this video. We'd like to invite you to leave a comment below. If you have a question, especially about how to write fiction, something you'd like to know, we'll answer it in another video. So please leave your comments and questions below. We'd also like to ask you to like this video and to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for hanging out with us on Fiction Geeks, and we'll talk to you later.